What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 4040 Vision podcast. I'm your host, Khaled Abdallah, and I'm joined today by a good friend, Perry Vision DiVirgilio. He is a writer, producer, and poet from North Philly who's here to talk some Philly sports with me. How you doing today?
I'm great, man. I'm looking forward to this. I love talking Philly sports.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I am not a Philly native, but I did spend some time there. I'm assuming you were born and raised in Philly?
Born and raised, yep.
All right. And you're still in Philly, but I spent about 6 years there. Some important years for me and my family. I fell in love with the city. You can see I got my Phillies jersey on. I got my Sixers hat on. So I'm repping. It's always my B teams after the Bay Area teams. So we're here today to talk about our top 5 Philadelphia sports icons. So this is completely subjective. We're not talking about stats or rings or anything like that. These are just people that we think are, the most synonymous with the identity of the city of Philadelphia. So I'm going to throw it to you for your number 1 Philly sports icon.
Number 1, again, icon, I got Dr. J. I think he epitomized what Philly sports is, the blue collar grittiness of it, but also like cool and smooth. People forget how like iconic he was. Like before Mike, everybody wanted to be Dr. J. And again, I was a young boy. Like this is like my dad's era. But even remembering how my dad just kind of just was in awe of this guy. He was like larger than life. And to this day, he's still a smooth dude. And when you can't think Sixers basketball without thinking Dr. J.
And he did win a ring in Philly, right?
And he did get a ring. Yep, him, Moses Malone, Mo Cheeks, Boston Strangler. Like that team was crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's definitely someone I think that's been overlooked in recent history because, he's an older head and he doesn't have like 5 rings or 6 rings or whatever, like Jordan or some of these other guys. But I think in terms of like iconic coolness, swag, all that stuff, especially like pre Iverson, some of these other guys that are in the league now. I mean, it's hard to that's a pretty good choice. He's on my list. He's not my number 1. Maybe I have some recency bias, maybe because I'm maybe a little bit younger than you, but I went with Allen Iverson as my number 1 pick.
It's a good one.
I know. I mean, right? Yeah. It's like everything when you think of Philly, it's like you think Allen Iverson, right? Yeah. I mean, especially someone that didn't grow up there. He's the most synonymous with the city of Philadelphia. And then when you go there, you're like, man, he could probably run for mayor and win. Like he's the type of person that's got like 100% approval rating. Even the fact that he spent like the last few years outside of his career, like outside the city, but he's back in Philly. I used to see him at games sometimes. I actually got a chance to meet him once at the Mitchell and Ness store, and he was just so cool. Like it's really that simple, right? I mean, I'm assuming he's on your list at some point, but
for sure,
everything about him, especially for me as like a '90s kid, those early 2000s, he was just cool.
Yeah.
All right, who is your number 2 on your list?
He's my number 2. Iverson is my number 2. And again, this is my era. And I was it was a flex to say you were from Philly during that time because it wasn't just him. People forget that around the same time Iverson, we talking like he got drafted in 96.
Yeah, like
that
late
same
90s.
Late 90s into the early 2000s. We talking, this is like the rise of neo soul with Jill Scott, Music Soul Child, and all them. This is the rise of Philly, the reemergence of Philly hip hop with State Prop and Bean. So it was a flex to be from Philly at that time, but he held court. Everybody, it wasn't like a bow down because that's like a thing we don't really do in Philly. It's like the North and Game of Thrones. We don't bend the knee for anybody here. But he was like the king amongst kings in the city. Like whether it was him hanging out at the little restaurants and stuff like that, or seeing him out and about, he just was so accessible. He was cool as hell. He redefined the NBA. Everybody and their mom wanted cornrows. Everybody and their mom wanted the sleeve on their arm. He just was so cool. Like, Tim Hardaway and Randolph Childress and them had the crossover, but he just made it look elegant. And it was like everybody on earth was trying to perfect that crossover. And I used to see him all the time. Like in my animated series, I talk about how I lived at 2764 Cranston Road, Red Door, first floor. And it was around the corner from Pecan where they used to practice. So I would see him all the time in the Pathmark, and he was always really cool, always dap you up, chop it up what you might tell a joke. And to this day, it's the same kind of thing. And there's this, just in general, like again, just not outside of him, there's this synergy between Philly and Virginia, specifically like the Tidewater area of Virginia,
Okay,
that
tell me
Hampton
more.
Roads area. And he's a part of that, like whether it's Michael Vick, whether the clips always talk about their Philly influence, how they made it in Philly first before they made it anywhere. There's this VA and Philly kind of thing, and it just makes sense. He's from Virginia, but he's so Philly coded, and we don't play about him at all here. Like we don't play about Iverson. You can say a lot of things about a lot of people, but don't ever come for Allen Iverson. Like he's royalty here.
Yeah, that era. I mean, there was some other stars, playing other sports. Think about Donovan McNabb, Terrell
Yeah.
Owens, people like that. But yeah, Allen Iverson is number one. I don't want to sound like some white dude on ESPN, but like the blend that he brought of hip hop culture
Yes.
to the NBA, where it was something that they were trying very hard to get away from, especially like in the 80s with the cocaine epidemic in the league. They were just trying to get away from the black identity. There was fans out there that were like, I can't watch the NBA because it's too black.
Yeah.
And then Allen Iverson came on and he flipped that script, and it led to the dress code for the players walking in. And I think in terms of like cultural influence, I mean, obviously basketball influence, you talked about the crossover, the shoes, the look, but I think in terms of cultural influence,
Yeah.
I don't know if there was an NBA player in NBA history that's more culturally influent than Iverson.
I would agree with that 100%. Again, everybody, just the way folks dressed and walked and talked, and he just was the epitome of cool at the time. While still having like this gritty blue collar thing, I don't think we can take that out. They have him listed at 6'1". He's 5'11" on a good day. He's 5'11", and to be is one thing to kind of run this era. And there's no shout. I love basketball, so it's no shade to this era. But back then, you're going against the trees. You're going up against Mourning and Shaq, and he would just take a brutal pounding in the like just going into the, and that's such a Philly thing. If you work hard in Philly, people will love you you ain't never got to pay for a drink in your life. Even if you're not that good, if you bust your butt, if you go hard in this city, people gonna love you. And the fact that he was so small going up against these trees is that's one of the reasons he has so much love in the city. Like that's so iconic of that era to be that small in the big man era and just cook and still average 35 points a game is just crazy when you think about it. So that's so Philly coded.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's why I was surprised he wasn't your number one, but I guess it makes sense. Dr. J was like the predecessor to Allen Iverson. So
it was tough, but I just think, again, I went back and forth between those two, but Doc was the precursor to Jordan. When everybody wanted to be like Mike, first they wanted to be like Doc, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think culturally, I think it went Doc, Jordan, AI, as opposed to who was kind of carrying the culture from the 80s into the 90s into the late 90s.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan probably had a Dr. J poster in his bedroom.
I would bet good money he did.
All right. My number two is Mike Schmidt. So Philadelphia Phillies, probably the greatest Philly of all time. Yeah. He has close to 600 home runs, 10 gold gloves. He brought a World Series to Philadelphia, which was, a big deal, especially in a city that was starved for championships for a long time. We talk about blue collar. We talk about stoicism, hard, work ethic, all the stuff we talk about Philly. That's like synonymous with Philly. When you think of the Phillies, there was a couple other ones. I think Chase Utley, some people said online, I felt like that was a little too recent.
Yeah.
Maybe Bryce Harper eventually. I know he's there he signed for like a 13-year deal or something. But the original OG, I think, is Mike Schmidt. What do you think?
Michael Jack Schmidt was that dude. Like when I was growing up, that he was the Phillies. Period, point blank. He was the Phillies. I also think he is one of the most underrated players. People don't really bring him up, but when you do, everybody's like, yeah, best third baseman of all time, but nobody immediately throws him into the fray. So I think that's another kind of Philly thing where it's like we always, whether we want to admit it or not, we always feel at least like we're in the shadows of New York or in the shadows of DC. So it's like
100%.
We feel like we're underrated and underappreciated. So that goes right along with that in my eyes. So yeah, I think he is. And again, I wasn't around in the 50s and 60s, obviously, but for me, he is the epitome of baseball growing up.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about being overlooked. This is something I felt very strongly when I lived there. And I would have friends from the West Coast. They're like, oh, we're going out to the East Coast. We're going to, go to DC and then go to New York. I'm like, yo, like Philadelphia is right here. It's right there in the middle. It's literally
like you gotta pass through us. Just stop by and say what's up.
I'm saying if you're taking 95, if you're on the Amtrak, just, go to Penn Station or whatever. I'm forgetting the name of the station now.
30th Street.
30th Street. Thank you so much. Yes. I'm like, just stop over. I promise you'll have a good time. We'll eat some good food, go to Chinatown, all this stuff, check out the Rocky Steps, all the touristy stuff, and it's all good. But yeah, it was a big thing where people would always hit me up like, oh, yo, I'm going to DC. I'm going to New York. I'm like, come to Philly. But again, people just overlook it. All right. Who's your number 3?
My number 3, the funny thing is I almost went 3 Sixers in a row, and Schmidt is on my list. But my number 3 is Reggie White. Okay. He was the minister of defense, like those 90s defenses, and there was a bunch of amazing people on. You can run down that list: Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, Eric Allen. It was just Pro Bowler after Pro Bowler. But Reggie White was the Eagles' gangrene defense, and I almost went Randall. Because again, I think Randall revolutionized, iconically, he revolutionized the position in a lot of ways. He was a precursor to the Vicks and the Lamar Jacksons and all that. But I went Reggie because he might be the GOAT when it comes to defensive players. And Lawrence Taylor says he's the GOAT. A bunch of people say he is the best. But for me, it was growing up, like that's who the Eagles were to me. He set the tone for that gritty defense. He set the tone for the NFC East back when that was like, NFC East, the champion was coming out of NFC East. Unfortunately, it wasn't ever the Eagles back then, but it was going to be the Redskins, the Giants, or the Cowboys. So Reggie White set the tone in Philly, and he, again, gritty, the minister, like he never said anything crazy out his mouth, but he was just like this tone setter in the city where we just felt like, he got our back. Like we follow him, and it was like the most heartbreaking thing when he left to go to Green Bay. We understood it, but it was like, it felt like a kick in the nuts when he left, like collectively. And nobody ever blamed him. But like when he left, it was just like, we felt hopeless. It was just like, yo, we're never going to win that win. When Randall left, it was like, oh, an icon is leaving. But it was a different feeling when Reggie left. It was a void in the city.
Were you guys rooting for him? I mean, he did end up winning a Super Bowl with the Packers.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like even like Andy Reid, I was rooting for Andy Reid to get his ring when he left. Now, not so much, but I wanted him to get his first ring. I was happy he got his first ring because I feel like no matter how long he's in Kansas City, I'm always going to look at him as a Philly boy. So when the Philly guys do leave, we still do root for him, especially if you put on for the city. Like that wasn't him leaving. We understood it. They wasn't going to pay him. They was never really trying to put a good offense on the field for him. So we understood when he left, but it was like a kick in the nuts. When it was a sad time as a young boy. It was sad.
I mean, he's probably like between him and Randall, it's probably the number one like throwbacks that I would see around Philly if you go to an Eagles game, like that Kelly green that they were wearing. It's like it's either Randall or Reggie White. The only reason I don't have him on my list, when I think of Reggie White, I think of him as a Packer. Maybe just because I'm not from Philly, so it's like
I get that. Yeah. And that's where he won his ring. Yeah. So it makes sense. Yeah.
And I think he spent 8 years in Philly, something close to that. So it's not like he wasn't there for a long enough time. I think it's just, for me, the association is with Green Bay, unfortunately. But I totally understand your.
That's all. But that's all we had to hold on to for the longest. Like, we had that 93 defense, though. That's all we had to hold on to for the longest before Doug Peterson and them got that first ring. So we were a battered fan base for decades. And that's what we always went back to. Like, yo, that defense, man, that gangrene defense, though, that's all we ever talked about. It was 93 was the Phillies, that 90 defense. It's all we ever talked about here. Like Jerome and Clyde and Seth and Eric Allen. We had nothing else to hold on to as Eagles fans during that era. So I think no matter what, I don't know anybody in Philly who's ever going to look at him as a Packer. I do understand why the rest of the country would.
Yeah.
But in Philly, like, that was just like a glitch in the system to us.
And you mentioned Randall was almost made it.
Yeah.
Like, is he the most beloved Philly quarterback of all time?
That's a really good question. Wow. I would probably say, yeah. It should be McNabb.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like people are sour on McNabb now. I don't know.
Because McNabb did a lot of other goofy shit. Like, I think McNabb was more like, he complained a lot. And that's not really a thing that's done. Like, one of the reasons folks love Hurts so much because he's so stoic. It is what it is. It's going to be a real simple answer, but he's stoic and he's going to get the job done. McNabb did a lot of, he never really got over the Eagles fans booing him at the draft. And they wasn't booing him. They just wanted Ricky Williams. They got that 100% wrong. They wasn't booing him. They was booing the administration. He never really got over that. So it should be McNabb, but I think it is Randall. Because, again, he didn't They didn't really give him no offensive line. Calvin Williams and Fred Barnett were really good wide receivers, but it wasn't like he had pro bowlers or nothing like that. And he just made magic. Like anybody who was around back then, like he was the ultimate weapon, like this, like the Sports Illustrated episode, issue said. And he's the precursor to, that's who Vic and them probably was looking up to back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's like he's like the grandfather to Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and them guys.
Yeah, you look at his stats; they're very comparable to the things that guys are doing now with
Yeah.
the rushing attempts and all that stuff. It's just like just so ahead of his time.
Yeah.
In terms of the dual threat and all that stuff. Like back then, you're talking about you want every quarterback to be like 240, 250, whatever, and just stay in the pocket. And he was like, no, I'm going to run around and make magic. And for me, Randall, I know he was an Eagle and all that, but yeah, obviously, I think from my age, I most associate him with those Randy Moss teams in Minnesota. And they were so much fun. They were just, I mean, we're talking about greatest show on turf in St. Louis, but it was pretty close in Minnesota.
And that's another example of who we cheered for once they left. Like we understood like he was never going, like again, those Eagles teams were never going to put the money in. They wouldn't even fix the turf at the vet. It was like Molly playing on concrete back then.
Straight up.
It was brutal. But we, when he left, like it was like, whoever he was on, like I was going to be cheering for him. And he was the perfect quarterback for Randy Moss because he had a cannon. Like, yo, just throw it as far as you can. Either Randy was going to catch it or nobody was going to catch it. So, like, I was such a big Vikings fan during that time because I loved Randy Moss. And, I'm a Notre Dame fan. He was supposed to be at Notre Dame so I've been a Randy Moss fan since, his Marshall days. And that just was a perfect combination. Just let it rip. And folks in Philly were like big Vikings fans because of him during that time.
Love it. Love it. All right, my number 3, changing gears here a little bit in terms of sports, I went with Joe Frazier. I think a lot of people pick Rocky, which I want to talk to you about that, how you feel about
I got feelings about that.
Please tell me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joe Frazier, he wasn't born in Philly, but he started his boxing career in Philly. And I think Philly, I mean, the boxing culture and history there, aside from Rocky, I'm talking about real life people, it runs deep. It is a boxing city.
100%.
I know he's overshadowed by Muhammad Ali, and I think Muhammad Ali had a lot of regrets about the way he talked to Joe Frazier and treated him, which I think unfortunately diminished his legacy a little bit. But when you really look into who he was as a person, the blue collar ethic, so everything about Joe Frazier is just screamed Philly. And of course, with the heavy boxing culture there that just runs deep in the roots, I couldn't, overlook one of the greatest boxers of all time, who, like I said, unfortunately was overshadowed by Muhammad Ali, but definitely deserves his time in the sunshine.
That's a great pick. And the funny thing is he is so underrated that it didn't even occur to me that he wasn't even on my list, which is crazy when you think about it, because he is, again, not being born here is, completely too different. Because again, Iverson wasn't born here either, but he doesn't get the appreciation that he deserves. And I'm glad you brought up the Muhammad Ali thing, because I think that we don't really talk about that, but it's a cringe moment when we do talk about it and we do think about it. It's like, yo, Ali, you was drawn doing that. And I know you trying to sell the fight, and he's one of the greatest salesmen of the boxing. But it's like, yo, you played into a lot of the things he said about Joe would have been like verbatim what like a Klansman would have been saying at that time about Joe. And we 100%. Don't talk about that enough. I know his daughter. Shout out to Jackie. I know her daughter now through his son-in-law, Pete. And he's just, I got to meet him a few times. And he was just the dopest dude. And I'm glad, and this is my Rocky thoughts. The fact that
Please tell me more.
Rocky had a statue and for the longest and Joe didn't that was a black eye in the city. The fact that people think about this slide. Sylvester's not even from Philly. Shout out, like everybody think he is because of all the Rocky movies, and that's kind of cool. But he's not from Philly. He is kind of Philly coded. But the fact that we had that Rocky statue and everybody goes and takes the picture with the Rocky statue, and that's cool. That was 50 years ago or whatever, so that's still kind of cool. But the fact that we're just getting a Joe Frazier statue, that was kind of an abomination for the city. Like that's really bad. He's one of the best. Like you said, Philly is a boxing town. Like growing up, I grew up on 22nd in Indiana in North Philly, and on the corner of Judson in Indiana, just a block and a half down, there would be boxing matches in the street. Like people would have the gloves on and just in the middle of the street, like it's like you play basketball, like football in the street or hockey in the street. Car that's what they were doing with boxing down in the middle of Indiana Avenue. It's just a boxing town. It was always gyms to go to, whether it was Joe's gym or somebody else's gym. Even like what Shakur Stevenson and Floyd Mayweather's defense is called the Philly Shell because it originated here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great pick. And I'm embarrassed that wasn't one of the first people that I thought of. Again, I don't know why I wasn't thinking about boxing, but Joe is an icon, and it's also an abomination that his gym wasn't registered as like this place that we shouldn't touch. It's like a furniture store now. Like it's pathetic. Like
where's his gym in North or South?
Yeah, it's on Broad and Glenwood. And for the longest, we would like drive by there, and it said "Big as Day, Joe Frazier's Gym" or Frazier's Gym, and that was like a discount furniture store. So that's so sad to see. Like you could literally you could see it when you back in the day. You could see it even going on the Amtrak from 30th Street to New York. It was right there on the side. So it's like we don't, and I'm clearly guilty of it right now. We don't give him the respect that he deserves as a Philly icon.
Yeah, I think we focus a lot on the team sports, which is all good, right? There's a lot of team sports in Philly. You got all the major teams. You got a soccer team, all that stuff. So it's understandable. But his statue is up, right, in like near the Wells Fargo Center.
Yeah, it's right down there, right outside the Xfinity Center. So yeah, and it took forever. Like it should have been. He should have had that joint a long time ago, man. Because again, he was the heavyweight champion in the world, and the only person that again, when we talk about that era, we talk about
that's the golden
Muhammad
era of the
and
heavyweights.
George. But like those were, and again, he beat Ali, and we don't talk about that. Like it wasn't like he was like he had it and he just was like chumped. He beat him. So we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about that enough.
Absolutely. All right, who is your number 4?
All right, I wasn't trying to go heavy with basketball, but we're talking iconic, and I got to go with Charles. Okay. Barkley was, again, is still a Sixer. I don't care that he played for the Suns. Again, you had your run with the Suns. And again, we understood that he had to go because the Sixers at that time wasn't going to put no money into it. Like it was a bad joint back then. So we understood why Charles had to leave. And again, a lot of us became Suns fans during that time because we wanted him to get a ring.
But helped that the jerseys were nice. The jerseys were nice.
The jerseys was nice as hell too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, especially with his little sneaker, them little 93 Barkley them jaws was tough. With the little purple in them things was tough. But for me, again, it was just this accessibility thing. He was somebody else you could see around the city. I played high school ball in Philly for like a dynasty, Simon Gratz High School, and I played in college. And being like going to like St. Joe's camp, St. Joe's basketball camp, he would be on the track running and then he would come in and talk to us. Not getting paid. It wasn't a paid appearance, just in there chopping it up with us, taking pictures and giving us advice. And he might have given me the best advice I've ever heard in my life when it came to basketball. He was like, y'all ain't going to the NBA. None of y'all. And I was like, yo, dude, like, why would you? He broke down the math of like McDonald's All-Americans who never made it to the league. Like it's breaking it down like, yo, this is the numbers. Like, have your dream, but have something to fall back on. And it was brutal. But he was just so accessible. That's who he is. He was so accessible. He's the level of honesty, the blue collar that he has, and again, the Alabama boy. But you'll still see, again, he won't say that he was I don't think he's ever going to say like he might hang around Phoenix, but I can tell you he's always in Philly. He's always gambling somewhere, like at one of the casinos. He's always in Philly. Like I think he looks at Philly as his home. So I hate to go 3 Sixers, but again, talking about iconic, like who put on for the city, who represents Philly like that, I gotta go Charles.
Yeah, he was on the bubble for me. Because I wanted to fit in some of the other sports, especially like Joe Frazier. I want to get at least one Eagle in. I haven't done an Eagle yet. So I'm like, I needed to get one of these guys in, but he was tough to overlook. I think he spent like 9 years in Philadelphia, obviously drafted by them, had some great moments, but I don't think he made the finals or anything like that until he left. But in terms of like association, I think people still associate him that, the bright red 34, like all that stuff. I mean, you still see a ton of those jerseys around town, especially when you go to games and stuff. So it's a great pick. My number 4, Dr. J. We already talked about him, but he was Michael before Michael and just all-time great. Just the acrobatics. Like some of the highlights you see of him, you're like, this is the inspiration for so many of the high flyers that we see now. Again, Michael and Dominique and Vince Carter and so on and so forth. So he was like the original. So we don't need to spend too much more time on Julius Erving. And he's a real nice dude. He's still around Philly. I used to see him at games when I had season tickets. Does he still live in the area? Because he used to be there all the time.
I think so. He's always around. And on top, like, I think you bring up a good point, the high flyers. And I think sometimes we forget to understand, like, somebody is just taking from somebody else and adding their thing to it. Like, Doc was the first creator. Like, there's no disrespect to Larry Nance or like any of the great high flyers from back in the day, because they're all worthy. But he was the one, like, and then like Jordan took from him, like Dominique, and then like you said, Vince Carter took from it. So on and on and on, like everybody's just kind of taking from one like inspiration and then creating their own thing, adding their own flair to it, or playing off that and doing something greater because of that. So again, he's like the grandfather or great grandfather at this point to all the big time dunkers.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Nothing makes me more upset. Like, I'm not even that old, but it just makes me feel like such an old man when I see these kids like say, oh, Cade Cunningham's doing the same thing Dr. J was doing, or some random, 6 man off the bench. And I'm like, you don't understand. He did it first. And that's what matters. Because like you said, people take inspiration from people that did it before them. So if you did it first, you still deserve some credit, even if some of the acrobatics and stuff is a little more, it's more expected these days. But it's like you still need to appreciate the people that did it first. And as like a amateur sports historian, like I feel like I need to like carry the load for these guys. Be like, no, they did it first, and that matters because they're the inspiration for everybody else that came.
That's real. Again, Mike did the free throw thing, but again, Doc did it first. Mike made it look pretty with the whole, you know what I mean? Like, but if it wasn't for Doc, would he have been attempting that and been able to, freak it out afterwards? It was Doc who did it, and Mike just made it his own afterwards. So I think that's why we need to be giving up. We need to pay homage to like folks who were before us. And even with, and again, this is a Bay Area. I love shout out to the Bay. I love the Bay, by the way. Again, is this Steph Curry is the GOAT the GOAT shooter to me at this point. And it took a lot for me to say that, but it is undeniable at this point. But if he's not watching his pop, who was a sniper, if he wasn't watching Reggie Miller and all these people, like we got to also, if he wasn't watching Ray Allen, would he have been the guy that he is? So I think that's very important to make sure that we're continuously like, hey, he drew inspiration from this person. And you want to see somebody, a good athlete wants to see somebody, surpass them because that's a part of their legacy. Like, I carried it this way. You took the torch and took it this way. So I think that's very important.
Yeah. It keeps their name alive, keeps their moments, their highlights. Anytime you get passed in a record or somebody does something that, quote unquote surpasses you, it's like, it gives people an opportunity to talk about you and bring your name back in lights. So
definitely.
All right. Who's your number 5 here?
Michael Jack Schmidt. We talked about him. He is Mr. Phillies to me. And again, I hate it to go so Sixer heavy, but I mean, I guess I'm a basketball guy growing up.
It's
so
subjective.
I mean, yeah. But Mike Schmidt was the Phillies to me. And I almost went, and again, I think because he's a Hall of Famer, because like that kind of weighed into it with me too. But again, for me, like growing up, like I remember those games watching it with my grandfather, and my grandfather yelling at "Come on, Schmitty" and all that. I remember though, but I almost went like Lenny Dykstra or John Kruk, that '93
team. Some other.
We had a good run, but Schmidt again with the ring, and it might just be, and in a lot of people's eyes, he's the GOAT third baseman. So he just was, and again, gritty, quiet, wasn't like this boisterous guy, was also really clean when you saw him, like a real kind of clean guy, like almost like Dr. J in some sense that he would be clean, he would clean up really well. So yeah, Michael Jack Schmidt was, that he was the Phillies growing up.
Absolutely. All right, my number 5, I finally get an Eagle on here, and I went a little more recent than Reggie White, but another defensive player in Brian Dawkins. I just felt like, when I think about those teams, they were intimidating. Yeah. It was the dark green jerseys, the black helmets. There was just like this intimidation factor that came with that team. And who was the leader of that intimidation? It was Brian Dawkins.
Weapon
the way
X.
He was, exactly. Weapon X, right? The intro, like a lot of people think about Ray Lewis and his squirrel dance as the iconic intro, but I think about Brian Dawkins coming out on all fours.
All fours was crazy.
Like a lion or a tiger about to get unleashed, and the smoke, and my favorite thing was the black visor, so you couldn't see his eyes. He was just He was just mean, and I love watching him play. Unfortunately, he ended his career with the Broncos, who I despise. But
Yeah.
100%, he's a Philly guy. He's an Eagle,
Yeah.
and there was just like he's such a throwback player. Like I don't know if a player like him is surviving in the NFL these days with all the hits he was
I don't
laying.
think
Like,
so.
yeah, he's a throwback. It's like him,
Yeah.
Ronnie Lott, Steve Atwater, just dudes that were just like laying people out in the middle of the field, and just a great player to watch, and someone that's like, to me, is truly iconic. I probably have some recency bias, like I said, because it's more of my era. But I had to get one Philly, one Eagle on there, and I was like, it's got to be Brian Dawkins.
I think that's such a great pick. It's interesting that time in the league, it might have been like the last of the Mohicans when it comes to like being able to just punish people and having that level of intimidation.
Yep.
Because at the same time, in the league, you got Dawkins, you got Ed Reed, you got Sean Taylor, like these intimidating safeties where if you come across the middle or you throw in that seam, you're gonna get lit up. You just had to accept it. It wasn't no targeting, wasn't no defenseless player. You should have defended yourself. And for him to stand over top of you screaming, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, after laying you out is just a whole nother level of intimidation. Like, you're not gonna bring Jesus into this at the lay him. Again, if you look at the highlights, RG Crumpler looked like twice his size. Like, he wasn't like this. Sean Taylor was like this humongous. Ronnie Lott was this big dude. Like, he
Yeah, they're
wasn't
both
like
like
this
six
big
three,
guy.
4, like big
Yeah.
dudes. Like,
They were big dudes, so you kind of expected that. But him, he just was, even the things where he's flying and his arms are way stretched out, he just was an intimidating dude, man. He set the tone for those defenses, and those defenses were really tough. I think that's a fantastic pick because he's one of the people that when you think about the Eagles, he's going to be one of the first people you do think about.
yeah, he played safety like linebacker, but he still had like that playmaking element too. And I love watching him play. Was there anybody that you really, really wanted to include on this list, but just, put him on the bubble?
There was a few of them, and again, I'm not a big hockey dude, but Eric Lindros was like such an iconic person at the time that it made me want to go play like in NHL, EA NHL hockey 95 back in the day or whatever we were playing. Like, he was such an iconic guy, and again, he would fight. So I wasn't like a big hockey guy, but I went to this middle school, John H. Taggart, in South Philly, and I can't like those kids just adored him. Like he was just larger than life. So I understood while I'm from the hood. We didn't play hockey or anything like that. And again, Philly kind of is a hockey town, I guess, but not like a Detroit or a Toronto or something like that. Um, he was a major dude hockey wise. That's who I remember. Randall again was, and we're saying iconic. He may not have the rings. He may not have like the like like the accolades of a lot of like his contemporary NFL quarterbacks, but again, revolutionized the sport. It was difficult for me to take him off the list because now, again, at the time, people were thinking like, this is stupid. This is a gimmick. Now, like, that's the thing. If you don't have a mobile quarterback,
It's the
people are like,
expectation now.
can you succeed in this league if you don't have somebody who can move? So, and I'm not saying he was the first. Obviously, like Roger Staubach and these players before him, but they were scramblers. He was like a show. He was an experience on turf. Joe Frazier.
He was a track athlete. I think that was the difference. Is like some of these other guys, like Steve Young or Roger Staubach or Fran Tarkenton, like they were scrambling, running around, but like Randall looked like a deer. Like out there when he got full speed, like, and he had like a sprinter's body. I think he ran track in college too, so it makes sense. But I want to say he coached track after. So yeah, just a different style to him.
Especially since again he was like Montana was like the standard back then. And then Steve Young obviously, and you got your Elway and Marie, you got all these amazing quarterbacks of that era. But for him to be as tall and lanky and in the NFC East with these brutal players hitting them and can't catch him, or the Carl Banks thing where they smacks him, he keeps his balance and then throws the touchdown, and he really didn't have
one of the
so many
craziest plays of all time. Yeah,
like his highlight reel is just sickening, and it wasn't like he was playing against like weak. These are strong. This is the Darryl Green like Redskins. This is the Dallas Cowboys. So, like, for him to survive during that time with not very many weapons, nobody can really name any of his offensive linemen. It's almost like Barry Sanders in the sense that, like, you did all of this without an offensive line. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. So it was difficult to keep him off but again, for me, it was like that defense is what define those teams. I'm trying to like McNabb should be, but again, McNabb has some things and
Yeah, it's gone sour a little bit,
it's
I
going
think,
sour. But I
since
think
he's
he's
left.
trying. I think he's been trying to. Like you see him more around Philly now, and I think he kind of let that go. But you can't take away any accomplishments. And again, when you look at his highlights, it's also crazy because he just he put up some. And again, for the longest, Reed refused to give him any wide receivers. Like it was like Todd Pinkston was his number one before they went and got T.O. So I think his ego was a little, fragile for Philly fans for the longest. But I think now that time has passed, we reflect back on those as really good times, and I think those like again I'm clearly have some recency bias because I know the old heads would say like Harold Carmichael, but I didn't see those guys play, so I'm not going to sit around and pretend like Chuck Bednarik is like on my list because those are just stories from my grandfather.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, man. Where can folks hear from you more? Where can folks see you?
Yeah.
Maybe on social media or on YouTube. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, so while I've been a full-time artist since 2012 at this point, which is crazy to think about. It's 13 years as a full-time artist, and I was touring, doing poetry and things of those, and I'm blessed to have been able to. I always say I've been everywhere from Fairbanks to the West Bank doing poetry. At this point, I've transitioned into becoming more of a producer and screenwriter,
Okay.
and kind of, I use the word loosely, animator. So I do an amazing series that I'm very proud of called Trash Theater.
Which
It's
is
an
great, by the way.
Thank you.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
It's an adult animated comedy set in that era that we were talking about, that late 90s, early 2000s kind of era where Philly, it was like a flex to say you were from Philly because of all the greatness that was coming out of the city at that time from, Eve, Beanie Siegel, Allen Iverson, McNabb. All of that was like at the same time, like in the city. It's an animated comedy set in North Philly between, about me and my friends and my little brother, my little sister, all the stuff that we kind of did, the dumb stuff we did as young men at that time, thinking that it was making us men, but now reflecting back, you see how it was almost like the opposite. So I like to call it an unbecoming of age, like watching all the dumb things we did and how we had to recover from those things. It's called Trash Theater. I upload a new episode every Sunday. You know, I upload to Instagram every once in a while, but Instagram is drawn right now with the algorithm. So it's every Sunday
They don't like
on
the long
YouTube.
form stuff. They don't
Anything
like
over 3
anything. Yeah.
minutes
Yeah.
is chalked. But every Sunday on YouTube, my YouTube channel is Vision Poet. My Instagram is Vision Poet. I wasn't cool enough to have it. I wasn't thinking about SEO back in the day, so it's just VISIONPOET. And I always upload really kind of stuff that if you're from Philly, you'll get a lot of the references, but you don't have to be from Philly to appreciate the comedy. Especially if you were around back then, you'll get a lot of the references, you get a lot of the dumb stuff that we did back then.
Love it. Love it. I'll make sure to include some links and stuff in the episode description so you guys
I
can
appreciate that.
subscribe, check it out. But 4040 Vision Poet, just there's a synergy here that you can't
Absolutely.
overlook.
And shout out to the Bay, man. I mean that, like, the Bay is one of my favorite places in the world, and I think there's a synergy there too because I think the Bay has always had to not fight for it, but like maintain. We have our own identity, our own language. We are not LA. We are the Bay. So I've always loved visiting the Bay. But shout out to Oakland and Berkeley and
Oakland
Richmond, and
especially. I
yeah,
mean, it's some
especially
like
Oakland.
I lived in both places, and Oakland is West Coast Philly. It's the same thing. It's overlooked. You got San Francisco on the other side of the Bay. Everybody goes to visit San Francisco. Nobody goes to Philly, for tourism as much. The language, the
Yes.
culture, the slang, the
Yes.
port city, like all of it. There's just so many like parallels between the two places that it's just impossible to overlook. There's so many
I
connections.
always say this. I'm so glad you said it because I always say, like, when I'm there, it's clear that I'm not home, but I feel home. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but I always feel like, yo, these are my people when I'm here. Completely different
Absolutely.
language, completely different dressing and dancing and everything, but I always feel home when I'm in Oakland. So
Yeah,
I'm glad
there's
you
a
said that.
connection there. You can't deny it. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for your time.
My
Let's do
pleasure.
this again sometime.
All right, for sure.